article, a letter from the Trib that was submitted to the Tribune that needs a response, an accurate response in terms of what is going on as far as the vegetation removal. Our first panelist will be Lori Gonzalez, and works for Community Action Partnership, and she has a fantastic story to tell, as well as some really great information about her outreach efforts. We also have my good friend Travis from the Madera Rescue Mission. He is going to be telling us his story and some other really great information. We will have Elizabeth Weisner discussing a few things going on with the Help Center and reporting back. We'll have some Q&A and then we'll wrap it up. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us here this evening. The first thing I'd like to start off with is to talk about a letter that was submitted to the Madera Tribune a week or two ago by a former Madera County supervisor. And the letter was in reference to what has happened to flood and drought control of the Fresno River. And the first of all, the letter challenged supervisors in District 3 and 4. That would be myself and Supervisor Gonzalez. The question was, what are you doing? As if we're not doing anything. The letter talked about the river and the lack of cleanliness, the overgrown vegetation. Went in talking about back 8 years ago when the river was cleaned up, and then questioned where the money was that was to go towards these cleanup efforts. And so it was a very misleading letter, and the former supervisor absolutely knew the answers to these questions that he was providing, which was really disingenuous. So what I'd like to do is to go over a little bit in terms of our flood control funds and what they go towards. First of all, we have 172 total miles of levees and channels that we work on. As you can see in the map, we have the Ash Slough, we have the Berinda Slough, and we have the Fresno River. And so you can see there's many, many more miles that we're dealing with than, say, just the stretch that you see here in the city of Madera. As far as funding for flood control, it's pretty interesting. The county gets roughly, it's around $900,000 allocated to the flood control district through property taxes. And so that's a nice chunk of change. But in 1993, something called ERAF, it's the Education Revenue Augmentation Fund, reduced our budget down to $257,000, about a 73% drop, and redirected those funds to local schools. Now, I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm just saying this is what the case has been over the last 28 years. Something that the former county supervisor is well aware of, but conveniently decided to not include in his letter. So now where did those funds go to? Say last year, the $257,000. Well, there was a memorandum of understanding with the city of Madera where each jurisdiction would kick in $25,000 to remove trash. And that was done last month. Also, 311,000 tons of sediment were removed from Ash Slough. We constructed 6 seepage berms on the Fresno River to prevent flooding. We mowed 26 miles along the levee slopes and crowns, and we repaired 11 miles of levee crown roads, which to me, that's leveraging those funds pretty well, because when you've only got $257,000 and you've got 172 miles that you have to cover, that's maybe what, $1,400 a mile. That's not a lot of money. So the question is why has nothing been done in the Fresno River recently? there's something that there's a problem, and it's called California Fish and Wildlife. And we could have $5 billion in the bank ready to clean the river, but we couldn't do it without something called a 1602 permit required for in-channel vegetation removal. They watch us very closely. You might say, well, why don't we go in the middle of the night and clean out the river? Well, it was only about 30 minutes after we started cleaning out the river a month ago with that $25,000 or that $50,000. And we got a call from Fish and Wildlife saying, what are you doing? We responded with what we're doing. And they said, well, you need to still get a permit or an emergency clearance to even do that. So don't think that they're not watching what we're doing. And if we do something that is not approved, we could be fined tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't think our taxpayers would appreciate that much. So we're following the rules. Now if we do get this permit, it's called a 1602 permit, we can go in and we can remove some vegetation. We have to ensure that we are working within the nesting seasons, so there's no issues with the birds, that the protected species continue to be protected, and there's other things. So there's only short windows we can actually get in there. Now, the good news is we're very, very close to getting our 1602 permit. We're hoping, we've gone back and forth after we received a draft permit, and we're hoping to get it by the end of the month. And then based on the final product, that'll tell us when we can go in and hopefully within the next 4 to 5 months to clean out the river. Again, it was an inconvenient fact for the writer of the article that was completely left out. And he absolutely knows that we needed that 1602 permit. So what I like to, so I hope that this has kind of cleared up some of those issues in regards to that letter from the Tribune. I know there's a lot of people read that and read the context of the letter on Facebook, and there's a lot of comments, and we felt compelled to answer that and to say, not only is that letter wrong, it's disingenuous, and we are absolutely on the road to getting the river cleaned up in this particular area. So with that, I'd like to now introduce Lori Gonzalez. She will be a panelist. She works with CAPMC, and she's going to introduce herself, tell her story, and talk about her current work. Lori.
Thank you, Supervisor Poythress. Hello, everyone. A little bit about myself. My name is Lori Gonzalez. I'm a mother of 2, a grandmother of 5 beautiful grandchildren. I've lived in this community since 1990. I currently attend school all day Saturday. I'm hoping to obtain my counseling certification. And I work full-time with the Community Action Partnership as a homeless outreach worker. I'm also a recovering addict with over 4 years clean. I work with my neighbors that are experiencing homelessness. Together, we work on identifying their barriers that are keeping them in that situation. I say together because I walk with them through their process. We don't just hand out information here. We go with you. If you want me to go, I will go with you. We overcome obstacles together. We make and attend appointments together. We fill out paperwork together, all the way until they're housed. I was asked, where do I draw my drive and my passion to serve the homeless? I think my drive comes from knowing firsthand that a solid life can be built on the rubble of your past. You see, I let untreated depression and a bad case of pride lead me to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol, and it robbed me of a life I deserved. This is something that I tell my clients, that they deserve to be happy. You can overcome what's been tearing you down all those years. And myself and the other outreach workers are here to help you. I think my passion comes directly from the population that I serve. When you walk up on a couple, this gives me just such joy. When you walk up on a couple in the river and they say, hey, we were just talking about getting clean. If you think that doesn't happen, it happened. These two were dead set on getting clean. I just happened to be there at the right time. They have done all the work. They have been working very hard for the last few months to get clean, and today they have 2 weeks clean off of heroin. That's not an easy task if you know anything about opioid use. I'm very, very proud of them. Behavior Health Services has been instrumental in giving them support while they're on this journey. I have the utmost respect for them. They did it. The young lady is already talking about looking for a job, and they're working on housing. I have another gentleman who I met in the river months ago who I'm working with. He had been robbed of everything, even his shoes. He was pushed to the point that he wanted to commit suicide. He had the presence of mind to go to behavioral health, where they were able to talk him out of it. And he asked them to call me because we had been working together. I went out and I met him. We got something to eat. I asked him not to return to the river, and he agreed. It was not a good place for him. I was able to get him some clothes, some shoes from my church family, and brand new clothing and undergarments. He wanted to take a shower, and I suggested that he allowed me to find him a bed. I was able to, and today he's running around trying to help others. He wants to be an outreach worker someday. He's working on himself right now, and he's doing a wonderful job. Did you notice in both of these stories, these people are looking towards the future? That's something that they didn't even think about living out there. I was also asked, how do I build relationships with those I serve? By being genuine and not pushy. I like to build a relationship. I start by introducing myself, asking them how long they've been out there. If they want to talk, I ask them if I can sit down with them. If they don't engage, I excuse myself and ask them if maybe I can come by next week and check and see if they're okay. Nobody's told me no. They're like, no, okay, or, you know, but I always go back. I make sure I mark it in my calendar so I can go back, so they see that I'm serious, I'm here. I always get their name so I can address them. Bye, Sally, bye, George. It's very important to call them by name. So when engaging folks in conversation, I also ask them if they have Medi-Cal and CalFresh food stamps. When I ask a client if they're interested in some help, I also ask them, what have they tried? And I listen to what their answers. I don't want to send them down the same road and and then go, I've tried this already. Okay, well, let's try something different. There's always, with all the services available in this community, there is always something different that they can try. I also let them know how I wish I knew about all the help out there when I started my journey. I let them know that this journey will sometimes be scary or uncomfortable, and if they start to get overwhelmed, we can take a break, but I'll be there to help them. It's important that I show up prepared and not giving up. That's my job. That's my part in this. The rest is their work, and it's harder than mine. My motivation to help them has to be right. After all, I'm a stranger. If I come scared or looking to take pictures with them, or if I come there with a bad attitude, I'm just here to do a job, they're going to pick up on that. I have no business doing this work. if I come with that attitude. I think just coming respectful and treating others the way I want to be treated. So I was asked, how does the community serve the homeless? This is where I get to brag on everybody that I work with. I'm pleased to say that there's a lot of help available for a single person or a family experiencing homelessness. I'm not going to lie, Madera is seriously lacking available rental units, housing. We are desperate for these things. We have rental assistance, but no available units right now. But with that being said, our agency, CAPMC, not only help the homeless, we also have homeless prevention assistance. We also have Shumanite Place that started off as a women's permanent supportive housing program, has grown to add men and family units. We just recently had a baby born at Shumanite, and he's gorgeous. We have the Madera Rescue Mission, who just recently unveiled their plans to add tiny houses for our transitional clients. And those are the ones going from homelessness to housing. That is very exciting. The mission has been such a big help to us with our clients. It's a lot easier to work with somebody who does not have to be constantly moving their location and can be in one place, rested, having eaten a meal, and who is stable in one place. All things the folks at the Madera Rescue Mission provide. They also have Emerson's House that provides a safe place for some of our clients who are in behavioral health services. Then we have the Department of Social Services. And by the way, I'm not listing all the things that these folks do. We don't have that kind of time, but these are just some of the things that I have utilized from them. DSS, they have assistance for folks experiencing homelessness as well. They are always my first stop with the client who does not have CalFresh or Medi-Cal. They have helped my clients obtain services quickly and have helped provide income verification in order to assist the clients when applying for permanent housing. Then we have the Veterans Administration. They have a new complex. It's an entire, that new building that's going in by Griffin Hall. They'll be providing housing to veterans and their families. They also have a whole building in Fresno on Clinton that is devoted to homeless veterans. They are just a pleasure to work with. I've had a few gentlemen obtain HUD-VASH vouchers for housing. They have an easy, streamlined process. I was amazed. They now even have boots on the ground where they have peer support that does outreach here in our community. Our Madera PD has recently assigned 2 of their officers to go out and work primarily with our homeless community, connecting them with services and asking myself and the other outreach worker to come out and meet somebody who's asking for help. Behavioral health services, let me just say, what don't they do? They have the most amazing staff. They have quick appointments. They have crisis appointments. They have staff that will transport you to medical appointments if you're a client. They assist us with documentation. They even have staff that will meet the client where they're at. They have folks that will come out and meet the client in the street if they're having a crisis and do their magic and help alleviate those crises. They have folks that will help you get into drug programs, or if you're having a mental health crisis, they have mental health crisis centers. I don't even know half of what they do, but their staff has always made my clients feel comfortable and welcome, and I appreciate that. Public health and myself and the other outreach worker recently went out to the homeless encampments, and they were getting people the COVID vaccine. West Care has folks who do crisis calls, and sometimes those involve our homeless population. They work with law enforcement. They call us, we call them, we help each other. Love Inc. I don't know if you're familiar with Barbara at Love Inc., but I've called her a lot. One time I needed a walker for a client who somebody had sold his walker. Within 10 minutes of hanging up, I had a walker in my trunk, taking it to the client. That is just amazing. And then finally, I was asked, what do you want the community to know about the homeless? I want the community to remember that we're talking about people. They are our neighbors, only without walls. I'd like to introduce some of the folks that I've had the pleasure to work with. There's the housewife who was married to the same man for 25 years. He took care of the finances and her. When he suddenly passed from cancer, she found out that they lived paycheck to paycheck. There was no insurance. She was unable to access his Social Security. 2 months later, she found herself living on the streets for the next 12 years. Then we have the daughter, who at age 9, both parents died in a car accident. She went to live with relatives who were more interested in her check than her. So much so, they did not even notice when her older cousin began molesting her. She spoke up. They told her to get out. She was 15 when she hit our streets. Then there's the uncle. He had been self-medicating since returning from Iraq, where he was the lone survivor of his unit being ambushed. He has been beaten, had his tent set on fire with him in it here in our community. He's not homeless anymore. And lastly, there's the young father who had undiagnosed mental health issues all his life. That progressed to him starting to hear voices. One day he walked out of his home in Texas and just kept walking. No one ever went looking for him. He stopped in Madera. These are just some of the folks I have met and worked with. How do I know so much about them? It's because I get to know them. Every person is different. Some like mustard, no mayo. Others don't eat meat. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a journey complete with bumps and bruises. I know I did. There are housewives, daughters, fathers, uncles, just to name a few. They have been veterans of foreign wars. They lived in homes and made dinner every night at 5:30, just like some of those here tonight. Sometimes it's pride or lack of family support or a misunderstanding. Whatever's inside is worse than the unknown facing them outside. I believe there are some of us listening who are just one paycheck away from losing our home, or maybe getting ready to walk away from an abusive relationship, or maybe about to get a car repossessed that will lead to losing your job and then your home. It happens every day, and we could find ourselves in our neighbor's shoes. Homelessness can happen to anyone, even us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Lori. And that was fantastic and very inspirational. And I'm sure that we're going to have a number of people that will have questions. And I think that there's a lot of people that have tuned in tonight that have really learned a lot. So thank you so much. It's fantastic. Next, we're going to hear from Travis. He's with the Madera Rescue Mission. And I'm excited to be able to have Travis introduce himself, provide a story, and talk about his current work. Travis, take it away.
Hello, my name is Travis Streck. I'm a graduate of the Madera Rescue Mission program. I graduated, I'd say, February of this year. I enjoyed it. I'm 34 years old. I was born in Wisconsin, and I moved about 7 times in Wisconsin from the ages 1 to about 10 years old. After some time there, my dad chose to move to Pennsylvania for a year until I was about 12. And he got another job down in Georgia, so we moved there. And I lived in Georgia till about 29, but I moved several times there, probably about 5 different cities, and it was hard in the beginning growing up, moving so much, meeting new friends and having to go to new schools all the time. It was very difficult. And in my home growing up, we were expected to wake up on the weekends and work doing chores. We'd wake up sometimes to a list of different chores to do, and we were expected to do it. If we didn't, we were punished for it. But it was very beneficial for me and my brother, and we learned good structure at a young age. So it helped me in the future to better my life. And I was also raised in church at a young age, as long as I can remember. So I learned what I needed to as a young kid. And then later in my life, I had this choice that I wanted to rebel. I wanted to see if I could do it my way. And it didn't work. You know, I wanted to be disobedient to everything my dad taught me because I thought I knew best for myself. I was about 17 years old and my first homelessness began. My dad gave me the opportunity to choose whether I wanted to follow his rules and live under his house or go on the streets. And I chose to go on the streets because drinking beer and smoking weed and shooting up cocaine were more important to me than doing the right thing. I was wrong. And I realized I was wrong after being on the streets for about, first time was only a couple months, and I called my dad and he allowed me to come back in the household. And he said, well, you know, if you're in my house, you just gotta follow my rules. So I continued to stay there, following his rules, doing work at the house for him. And it went on till I was about 18 years old. And at that time, my dad divorced my mother and he moved out to California. So I chose to move in with somebody and try to make life work on my own with her and raise 3 children. And it worked for about 6 years. And through that time period, I learned a lot about myself. I learned about raising kids, and I learned that I could do it on my own, but I was still choosing to drink, choosing to smoke weed, and choosing to do things that I shouldn't do. And eventually ended up in and out of jail about 18 to 19 times down in Georgia. And I finally got tired of doing that. So I called my father up and I moved out to California. And I've been here in California. I moved to El Grove. I was there for about 4 years, and then I moved to Sacramento at the Salvation Army. I did the Salvation Army program. It was a good program. Then I got out and I moved back with my father. He allowed me to come back, so I lived outside with him for a while. I was there doing, you know, work in his yard and stuff. And when I didn't want to do what he asked anymore, and I thought I'd do stuff my own again, I went homeless again in Oakhurst. I was homeless for about 1.5 years, just drinking all the time. It was no good, and I realized that I needed help, but I knew my father wasn't gonna give me the help I needed this time. I needed something different. So I talked to Larry Ritz at the Madera County Sheriff's. I got out of jail. He told me about the Madera Rescue Mission program. So I came in, I checked it out. I stayed on the guest side one night, and I talked with Greg Belmontes in the morning, and or that night, and he told me to come back the next day at 9. So I talked to him, and he told me about the Christ-centered recovery program they had at the mission. So it was beneficial in my young years that my father had took me to church, and I learned about Jesus Christ. And when I heard that there was a place that taught you more about him and allowed you to serve the least, the last, and the lost, I really thought about it. And I knew when I walked in, I was home. When the disciples welcomed me and there was good fellowship, and it was like I knew I was home. the mission, it taught me more than I knew, and I needed to know it. Like I love the verse in Philippians 2:3-4. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others." We as individuals need to love others the way that Jesus Christ loves each of us, I feel. And that opens the door for everything, for discussion, for hearing them out, listening to their stories, because every person in life has their own story. You know, we can't look at somebody and know what they've been through. You know, you gotta come to hear them out, hear what's wrong with them, see if they had trouble growing up, see if they were in a car accident and they can't function the way they should, see maybe they have like behavioral health issues and they can get all the help they need here in this community. So things that I feel would benefit Madera as a whole in the community would be a day center, somewhere where individuals, if they want to get off the streets and enjoy their day, have a place where they can play basketball or do puzzles or color or watch movies or speak to one another, get to know each other better, really grow as a community, communicating with one another and getting to know people more. I feel that would be very beneficial. And also be good is we need more housing. A lot of individuals can't afford housing because they're retired and they live off a income that is set. And you know, if they were to buy a house or rent a house, even their check that they get every month is just enough for their place to live. And I just feel that we need to make it a little easier for housing to be obtained. And that's about all I got for you guys. Thank you.
Well, Travis, thank you very much. And that was very inspirational. It's a great work going on at the Madera Rescue Mission, and Jesse's there with you, and you guys have done a great job. And thank you so much, Mike Unger, who was there before Jesse. And it's just been it's a team effort. So it's definitely a big part of the team as far as addressing homelessness. So thank you so much. Next, we'd like to go and hear a quick report from Elizabeth Weisner in regards to the Help Center. Elizabeth.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Weisner, and I'm the Community Services Program Manager, and I work here at CAPMC. And I am pleased to share the results of the hard work of the Help Center. The Help Center, it stands for Homeless Engagement for Living Program, and we have amazing staff here at CAPMC. We've had in this past year, we had 2 homeless outreach workers and 3 housing caseworkers and 1 housing coordinator. So this report represents the period of July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 21. So the top section, as you'll see where it says number of contact or location previous month, and then June 2021, and then the total year to date. This represents the number of contacts that the homeless outreach workers have had over a period of time. And when you look at June 2021, the second row down, in the city of Madera, they had 61 contacts. In Oakhurst, there were 6. Nippenwasi, 0. Coast Corsco 0, North Fork 0, Chowchilla was 5 for a total of 72 contacts in the month. And so when you look at 72, but they may have contacted the same person 4 times or 5 times that month, because when someone indicates that they would like to come into housing, well, then the homeless outreachers start the process of collecting documents that are needed, like Social Security card, income, verification of income, those types of things. And sometimes that's a process of 2-3 months. And so when you look at the line under that, where it's year to date total, it shows a total of 1,052 contacts for the year. It could be that it's not unduplicated, meaning of the 72 contacts they had in June, they may have contacted some of those in May, but they just report out for the month so you can kind of see what they're doing. And then we wanted to track what's the progress, what are the outcomes of this program, and I'm just so pleased with their work. And when people in the community hear them say nothing's happening with the homeless, and I'm like, oh yes, there is. There's people working so hard. And so the number one important thing is to get them into mental health services, because you can't be homeless without having, I mean, being out there, they're so traumatized from being out there. And what I tell clients that I talk to is, you can't, when they say, oh, I don't need mental health services. And I say, I don't know how anyone could be out there on the streets and not suffer from some form of post-traumatic stress. And then they look at me and, yeah, you're right. And so part of that section is how many went into a drug program. 14 went into a drug program. And these are generally people that the outreach workers see out there, and they'll say, I'm ready now. Can you get me in a program? And like, I can't say enough about Madera Behavioral Health, because they're the ones that make that happen. And so it starts with an assessment with behavioral health. And so for the year to date, 309 people went into Madera Behavioral Health, and they're really good about helping our clients start on that road to recovery and that road to receiving that mental health treatment that they need. And then often they get a call out, they'll get a call with someone who's suicidal. And so during the course of the year, there were 10 different people who were wanting to end their life. And so outreachers went out, and they often go out with PD. They have a, Laura, I can't remember the name of their team, but they'll come do a mental health assessment, and usually an outreach worker is there with them. And so, and then under housing services, housing is important, but we look at the whole person and of all their needs. And so while we're working on getting them into housing, we're also working on, how long has it been since you went to a doctor? And like, oh no, I'm scared of doctors. And so then and that's when Lori says, we'll go with them. Well, first of all, they haven't been in a long time, and they're not clean, and they don't want to go because they're too embarrassed because they smell. And so the outreach workers will work with them and help them think through the steps of, okay, well, let's make an arrangement to get you a shower and get you a clean set of clothes. And then transportation will be here at this time, and they'll remind them the day before, because they have no concept. Sometimes they have no concept of time. And so then on the day of, there's the transportation, and they meet them over, whether it be Camarena or wherever the appointment may be. And so this happens in the background while we're working on getting them housed. So in the last year, 91 went into shelter. And this is big because a lot of times they're out there and like, oh, no, when they get to know them, like, just try it and see. And then they'll go into, it's like that step, it's baby steps of first getting them in the shelter, then we'll work on the other issues, so the other steps. And reunited with family, by bus or airplane, 15. And 15 over the year, we got them bus tickets, or when we got a plane ticket or a train. Somehow they land in Madera and they have family somewhere else, but they can't get there. And so we help them get to housing in that way. And so the next thing that I want to talk about is helping people get the paperwork to get document ready. So 485 different, 400, that number is 485. I'm sorry, I'm tripping all over my words tonight. Please forgive me. And so some of these that we help 1 month, maybe the next month still collecting their paperwork. And then refer to permanent supportive housing, 40. And of those that were referred, 30 went into permanent supportive housing. And that's so permanent supportive housing is a specialized housing program for people with that have been homeless at least 1 year and or been on the streets or 3 incidents of homelessness in the last 4 incidents in the last 3 years. And so 30 of those accepted the placement. And so many times we go through the step, we offer them a placement and then they back down. And then there were 45 referred to rapid rehousing. And rapid rehousing is a type of transitional housing program that has a start date and the end date where we help them over a period of 18 months to get stable and to achieve the income needed to pay for their housing on their own. And we go through a process which is called the Fresno Madera Continuum of Cares. It's a coordinated access system. So when we have someone that's ready to be housed, we submit a housing matcher form to the continuum, and then they will match it to a program. And so we've had 9 matched to CAPMC's rapid housing program. And so they could be in housing if we could find a vacant unit for them to move into. That's our challenge right there. And then with employment, we've referred 29 people to Madera workforce. 13 we assisted with the interview process. And that's just, they didn't want to go through workforce. We found a job that they were interested in applying. So they helped them. They, kind of get them through the ropes of applying. And then 8 of those were actually employed. And so it's a fallacy when people say that people on the river don't want to work. Sometimes they just need someone to walk with them through the process of getting a job. And that is so key to being able to support themselves and be able to pay for their own housing. And Nick, are you able to move the sheet down or scroll the sheet up?
No, that was just the piece that we
Oh, okay.
So sorry about that.
Okay, and I can just go through some of the other things. We track everything we do just because I want to be able to boast on the staff. I won't go through everything, but I do want to highlight a few of the things that we track. 34 people were assisted in getting a Social Security card. So that's a bit of a process, and they need that to get into housing. And so they've lost their Social Security card. They have lost their California ID. They've lost their birth certificate. So let's see, 68 people were not signed up for CalFresh, and they helped 68 people get the food that they need through CalFresh. And 30 different people did not have health insurance, and they've helped them either get their card back or get signed up for health insurance so that they can get to a medical doctor and have their physical needs addressed. And let's see. And then there were 51 people that they assisted in getting into a medical appointment. So those are just some of the highlights of what staff have been working on in a year. And there's so much work to be done, and they're so eager to tackle whatever the challenge is. And just when we think we've seen everything, some other scenario appears, and we think, well, we haven't seen that one before. And it really is it really is a joy to work with this population.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I think it's really obvious from the three folks we've listened to this evening in regards to the homeless that there is just tons and tons of work being done with individual services being provided. And thanks so much, and great work. And I know that it's just going to continue on from here and even grow. So we do have an opportunity now to answer some questions. And one of the things, just going back to the vegetation issue, an important issue that I forgot is in regards to the 1602. Many of you might be thinking, well, why didn't you get a 1602 permit several years ago? Well, they take several years to get. We're in year 3 of trying to get this 1602 permit. It's like an act of Congress to get one. So that's really an important fact that I left out there. They're definitely not easy. So with that, Nick, what are some questions that have come up that our panel or others can answer?
No questions at this time. If you'd like, you can open it up to the group or proceed as you'd like.
Okay, very good. It seems like everybody has done a fantastic job as far as explaining what's going on. You know, Lori with her outreach efforts and what's going on with CAPMC. Certainly Elizabeth with all the contacts and things that are going on there. The Madera Rescue Mission and the fantastic job. Moving on to just wrapping up, I know that you know, we've been on now for roughly 50 minutes, and there's probably some of you who have not had dinner yet or want to jump in your pool. I understand, but so I just like to wrap up to talk about resources that are available in our community, and there's something that has been kicked out by the Madera Unified School District in cooperation with Madera, with Community Action Partnership, and it's a resource directory. And it's online. You can see the website at the bottom of the page, and there are any number in all types of services available. You look at the table of contents, and for instance, if you're looking for addiction and recovery services, on page 15 of this directory that's online, it gives you information where to find that. If you're looking for legal services, page 45. If you're looking for transportation services, it shows you where to find that. So this is a very, very valuable directory of community services that probably many people have no idea that exists. Many of us may not need any of these services, but there's certainly those out there who do need them. And also, you may know a number of people who are in this category of homeless or on the edge of homelessness that may need some help. And it shows those resources. You may want to reach out to Lori. You may want to reach out to Community Action Partnership. Reach out to Elizabeth, Madera Rescue Mission, any number of people, and that resource will help you do that. So with that, again, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us here this evening. I hope it's been informative. You know where to find us with any questions you may have that pop up, and we will be providing another town hall here in another couple of months and give you progress with what's going on in regards to our 1602 permit and other efforts to reach the homeless. So thank you. Have a great evening, and